You don't have to
After
pass.
a quick
Just
word
keep
from FanDuel, summer sports in full swing, and whether you're about baseball, golf, or soccer, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburnt at the beach. New customers on FanDuel can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if their first bet wins. Just open the FanDuel app today. Visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to get started. We kind of alluded to this earlier, but Chris Antonetti did a press conference over the weekend addressing the futures of Chase Delauter, some of the other things with the team, a little bit of CJ Kafis. But some of the comments they didn't caught me off guard, but I wanted to at least address some of the stuff that Chris Antonetti said. One of the things that Chris Antonetti mentioned was, quote, "I continue to believe in the group of players that are here and the staff that we have that's supporting them. It's really hard to be consistently successful at the major league level for anyone, and it's really hard for a young group to do that consistently." He also talked about the fact that Chase Delauter is finally in the stage to where they're considering a major league promotion. So I'm just curious, and Jay, we'll start with you. If you were to decode a lot of what Chris Antonetti said as our press conference decode expert, what would you take away from what Chris Antonetti gave us some insights to this weekend?
I think he knows that the season is teetering and the fans want a reason to come to the ballpark. You call Chase Delauter up, I'm going to look at the product for a minute again. It's going to bring me back. You have kids, you have two kids at the AAA level that I'm interested in seeing. I'm not going to drive to Columbus to see them. I want to see them at Progressive Field. So I think, and I know Jason's right, they do a pretty good job of a couple times doing like a little gaggle where they'll get a bunch of guys together and they'll answer the questions. Thankfully, they do that. But I do feel like this one in particular was the natives are getting restless. Let's go calm the waters. I remember 2 years ago when the move for Savali was made. Mm-hmm. And
they flew to Houston, didn't
they? They got no hit the next day.
Yeah.
And they flew to Houston. And they had to calm the waters. And I honestly, and I hope Tito writes a book one day. He won't. He's private. He's not interested in it. I would like to know to me, I felt like that was the last straw with Tito. Because when you're 2 games out and you're making a move like that, it does, whether it was a good trade or not, and by the way, that trade has gone from looking awful to looking great to looking awful. Because right now,
there is no awful.
I mean, you think it's still an awful trade?
No, at no point was it.
I thought it was awful the moment they made it.
No.
Because I don't care about a player 3 years down the road who, by the way, turned into a guy who can't play defense and forgot how to hit home runs.
He's not very good defensively.
He is a liability. He's a DH only.
He has to get better defensively.
He's awful.
Just like guys have to learn how to hit left-handed pitching and breaking
balls. I get
balls.
that.
He has to get better.
But you know what? Your starting point is your starting point. And I just don't think he just doesn't move like a good fluid fielder. He doesn't. Now, he's got to get better offensively too. Right now, like that trade's just a meh. Neither guy has, moved the needle. Savali's bounced all over.
Yeah, that makes it more than a meh.
Manzardo's going to be in this lineup for the next 4 years. What Savali was giving the Guardians,
until they trade him too.
And you're 2 games out, I'm like, I don't care about 2 years down the road. Why doesn't ownership go spend some money and sign a free agent? Why do we have to give away assets to get somebody that might become something? And so for me, I feel like it had a little bit of that to it. I think Tito was like, you know what? I'm chasing my tail here. I'm never going to win because it's not a winning culture. It's a let's see how well we can do with a really low payroll. That's the culture. And so I'm not sure what I even read into those comments. But I do think that the reason they came forward, they usually do it. Yeah, why would you want to give your manager a break? Because these questions are starting to get really hard to answer for him. Like, this is a team that's, when you quit and there's no effort, and I'm not saying they quit, but there were moments in the highlight package that I watched this morning from yesterday's game where you're not even trying to hold runners. I know it's 5-0, and I know it's in the 8th inning, but still play the damn game. Tito wouldn't have settled for that. He would not have settled for that. And I'm surprised at some of the things I've seen with no repercussions from Stephen Vogt. You can be too friendly a manager. You can be too good of a guy. And I'm not saying he is, but I'm starting to see signs that he might be.
Well, I also think you have to be careful that what their public perception or image is not always and very rarely what their private image is. So just because he's not going to come out and kill him publicly doesn't mean he's not killing him in the clubhouse and laying into him.
Well, we can tell by the lineup.
Well,
there are guys that are.
But y'all told me that the front office, they have a say so in the lineup. Do they not?
Well, they have a say so in the roster. I don't know how much input they have.
Yeah,
I'm sure they were involved in the discussions. Who's going to be our 2-hitter?
Right.
Like, I'm sure those are group decisions.
Sure.
But at the same time, if Steven sees a guy who, in Bo Naylor, is looking down at home plate when a throw is coming home to cut down a run, he has the ability to say, when Bo comes in, you don't pull him in the middle of the inning, of course. But when he comes in, he says, Bo, take a seat. I'm going to pinch hit for you. Hedgie's in. I haven't seen any of that.
Yeah.
And if anything warrants a decision like that, it's just lack of focus. You just weren't paying attention, and it cost the team a run. And I want to see something. I want to see a shot across the bow where every guy on the roster, because to me right now, nobody is safe. Stephen Kwan and Jose Ramirez are the only guys that I have penned into my lineup. The other 7, I'd have nobody penned in.
just wait. Brian Rocchio is going to bring that shot of enthusiasm because here he comes.
I mean,
if that's what it is, that's what it is.
How much?
Maybe he learned something down in the minor leagues.
How much does this account for anything? If you get drafted, if you get drafted by the Guardians, right? Even if you're good, you know you're not going to finish your career here.
More than
in all likelihood, if you become a star, in all likelihood, you're gone. Jose's the one outlier.
Does that not? If I'm Stephen Kwan, I'm sitting here being like, I put up a body of work. I bust my tail. I play defense. I run the bases well. I'm a good soldier. I don't rock the boat. I'm a good clubhouse guy. It has to be demoralizing to say, no matter how well I do, they're not going to invest in me long term.
It'd be demoralizing for me.
And if you're one of those guys, because those guys are the ones who pull people along and say, no, that's not acceptable. Because we're the leaders, right?
You're right.
I'm the guy. You gotta go through me and Hosey. That's where you gotta go through. Stephen Vogt. If you get to Stephen Vogt, by the time you get there, you might be gone because we done already approached you 3 or 4 times, right?
But he's not invested long term, so why would he
do that?
I don't know that Stephen Kwan isn't a leader. I kind of think he is a quiet leader.
He's one of the leaders of the team.
But here's the thing, to G's point, and I think you would agree with this, you're in career purgatory when you're a rising star and you play for the Cleveland Guardians because historically, they don't write checks. And it goes all the way back to the 90s with the Bells and the Ramirez and eventually Tomey and all of them. They came and they left. As soon as they could cash in on their success, they got out. So if you look at Cleveland as a purgatory, you might not come to the ballpark and outwardly say, I'm a little less invested today because 2 years from now, I'm going to be wearing a Dodgers uniform. But you probably in the back of your mind, there are times when you say, what's the point? What's the point in trying to rally the troops? We're working with a fraction of the payroll. You've got teams in the league that are spending $4 for every dollar you spend. And that's a level playing field. I would get frustrated by that. It's human nature.
I'm sure they are frustrated by it. And you can stay long term, but you're going to play at their number. And it's going to.
You got to do it like Hosey did.
Look at the contract Bobby signed. It was a very team friendly deal. And again, I think Tanner, having seen everything Tristan McKenzie went through, played a heavy role in.
He said, "Take the money," right?
I mean, I haven't talked to him about it, but yeah,
I would assume that.
I think he saw what happened with Tristan and said, "I'm going to take the guarantee."
Or Shane Bieber,
especially as a pitcher.
Bieber was in that position. He won a Cy Young, and they were like, we talked about him being moved for how many years?
Well, it was a fait accompli that he was done in Cleveland, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
And then he had to take a team-friendly deal, a prove-it deal, to show that he can still pitch after. By the way, I guess he is throwing bullpens.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's pretty promising.
Yeah.
But it might be too
July.
late. I mean,
I thought all along, late July, early August.
yeah. But here's the problem with that, and I feel bad for him. For him now, I hope he comes in, pitches his ass off, gets a great deal, and leaves. Yeah, my initial hope was we're hanging around enough where he can come in and contribute and make a difference.
Right.
What do you
ship
think
has
of
sailed.
the comment specifically in regards to calling up Chase Delauter and why he hasn't been brought up? Jason, I know you mentioned the soreness earlier, but back to the article that Zach wrote, he mentioned the fact that they've also kind of used the line that they don't want to take at-bats away from somebody else, when frankly, as Zach put it in his article, they have the lowest, if not one of the 2 or 3 lowest rates from certain positions, including shortstop, center field, right field, catcher, and first base.
Who do you want? Whose at bats do you cherish?
That was what Zach basically said.
Because when that, yeah,
Who
I know,
cares?
but like
Premium positions too. Center, short,
Yeah.
first base.
Here are the exact ranks, but I have it. Delauter plays right field. This is from Zach's article.
Power hit.
Cleveland right fielders ranked 29th out of 30th in terms of offensive productions. Their center fielders ranked 30th out of 30th, shortstops 30th out of 30th, and catchers 28th out of 30th. Quote, even mediocre production out of one of those spots would offer a big jolt to the lineup.
What's crazy is the Rockies are included in that. A team that's won 18 games?
Yeah.
The Rockies are included in that. And 2 of those positions, we are below the Rockies in production.
Nasty work.
This is you know what, Jay? I didn't see this coming. I picked them to finish 3rd in the division. I picked Detroit to win it, Minnesota to get 2nd. I picked them 3rd, and I took some heat from people upstairs. We do a pool every year, and I'm like, well, I think it's going to be close, but I just think that Detroit has passed us by, and I think I like Minnesota. Now, anything could still happen 2 through 3 or 4, but I did not see it unraveling this fast, this badly. This is embarrassing baseball. This isn't just bad baseball.
Yeah, it is. And it could bounce back just as easily next year. And I know people are sick of waiting for next year, and I don't blame you. But I'm just saying, like, this is how this team is. They're erratic. One year they're down. The next year they go to the ALCS. And then they're right back down, fighting for a 3rd wild card spot. So when you have young players and you're constantly changing the pieces around you, this is sort of what you get.
If you guys are out there watching, man, there's a movie out there called The 3-Body Problem. And basically, there's these alien groups who have 3 suns, right? And so you got 3 suns. So you'll have a generation full of people on the planet where everything is great. And then they'll get too close to the sun, they wipe the planet off, and then you got to start off from scratch. It reminds me of the Guardians. Like, the Guardians are the erratic 3-body problem. They're like, yeah, you're good. We rocking and rolling. We went to ALCS, and then the next year you get too close to the sun or too far away from the sun, and all of a sudden
You freeze.
You freeze. Either you got pitching problems, or now your sticks don't work, and now you always know that at some point the button to reset everything is always there.
And Antonetti made the point, it's really difficult, and this I think is excuse making. He said, it's really difficult to be consistent year in and year out. It is when your payroll is 27th or 28th in the league.
Yeah.
He's right. Because you're asking guys to overachieve every single year.
Right.
Guys might overachieve one year
You might get
then regress to the mean the next year.
You get a David Fry who balled out.
The reason it's not hard for the Dodgers to be consistently great or the Yankees, because every guy on their roster is great. And if one guy is struggling, we got you, bro. We'll pick you up at the back half or, whatever it is. And when you're this thin, you have no room for error.
None.
And once there's a crack in the armor, it breaks apart. And that's what we're looking at now. Yeah, he's right. It is hard to be consistently great every year when you have the kind of payroll that they have consistently every year.